I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have is assignment for request for council action. We have several for finance, so get ready. 1820, purchase of 25 PCs for various departments. Mtg Technologies, IT Department. 1821, mail server upgrade for IT Department. 1822, expenditure for Mergertech maintenance and expenses 1/1/18 through 12/31/18. 1823, expenditure over $15,000 for signal service for the street department. 1824, purchase of 2019 Freightliner forestry bucket truck. 1825, then and now Cargill road salt purchases. 1826, fire district advisory committee. 1827, expenditure over $15,000 for Osborne Medina Street Department. 1828, expenditure over $15,000 Lake County Sewer Co. Street Department. 1829, expenditure over $15,000 Signal Service Street Department. 1830, expenditure over $15,000 Signal Service Street Department. 1831, fund advances 001 to 821 Cemetery Mausoleum Fund. 1832, expenditure over $15,000 Signal Service Street Department. 1833, request to rezone 1011 Wadsworth Road R4 to SPD 3. 1834, track funding for State Route 18 corridor improvement project. 1835, bids for Guilford Boulevard bridge replacement. 1836, revision to police lieutenant job description. And finally, 1837, the buyout of phone system leads to a new maintenance contract. We have our Rita transition update. Mark Toronto's here from Rita. You have the floor.
Thank you, sir. As you just indicated, I've been asked to provide a conversion status update transition of the Regional Income Tax Agency. I'm just going to touch on a few of the major milestones and deliverables that occurred over the last several months. As you may or may not recall, back on December 15th of 2007, we converted all of the name, address, and identification numbers into our system of record known as RETAX. At that point in time, we also generated a welcome letter, which I'm sure many of the constituents here received as well, indicating or informing them of the transition from CCA to the Regional Income Tax Agency. On January 25th, we generated the postcard filing reminder. All taxpayers just indicated that were provided a very simple postcard and reminding them of their responsibility to file their 2017 municipal income tax return. On February 15th, we converted all of the previous filing and payment information into our system of record at RETA, and we're live. That's our internal jargon, so we began actually processing incoming returns that were received from RETA, and also activated all of our e-services at that point in time. So any electronic services, including electronic filing, payment, registration, taxpayers as of that date were able to go online. This also includes business taxpayers as well on the RETA website. In addition to using our website, we also partner with several software companies, Intuit, Lacerte specifically, Intuit, ProConnect, Tax Online, CCH, and Thomson Reuters. So if we have individual taxpayers here in the city that are using any of those software packages or local preparers, they will also be able to file electronically through what's called modernized e-file, or MEF for short. I did see that Kathy circulated our press release for our extended hours of operation, as well as the taxpayer assistance events that will be occurring. This year, the agency is hosting 13 taxpayer assistance events throughout the state of Ohio, 2 of which will occur here in the city of Medina. The first of which will be on March 14th, looking at my schedule here, between 12 and 5 p.m., and then the second will occur on April 7th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., both of which will be held at the Medina Community Recreation Center. The final outstanding action item that we have on our end in terms of finalizing the conversion will actually occur tomorrow. If you recall, in my last visit, we'll be installing the what we call the Tax Authority portal software on your computer systems here at the city. We have that scheduled for 11:30 a.m. tomorrow. That'll provide the city with access to taxpayer information and reports that your finance department will have access to monitor the income tax revenue throughout the year.
Okay. Questions?
I do have one. When you said access to the taxpayers' information, that's just for the city only. It's not for, or it's the city's use. It's not for the general resident consumption, correct?
This will provide your finance department, if they so desire, to look at individual taxpayer records to provide local service here in the city. So if an individual taxpayer or business were to contact the city directly, they would be able to look at the taxpayer records.
But as a resident, I couldn't.
No.
Okay.
No, this is restricted security access through what we call a virtual private network that only Keith and Lori would have access to.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. The first is, I know that there's a new look to the return that needs to be filed, and some people get a little bit
Yeah.
apprehensive, and we did receive some calls because it is longer, but I think the reason it's longer is because it's more detailed, with additional information that maybe CCA never asked for, or was assumed that it would be included within it, because some people don't have other businesses that they file with, or maybe not. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit, because I think there's some people who are concerned, and maybe you can explain the process about filling out the new return, and if they have questions, they can always call.
Sure. Two things about the return itself. It underwent some additional changes this year as a result of House Bill 5. So there were some recent legislative changes, probably most of the most sweeping changes I've seen in my almost 25 years working in the industry. So there were a schedule or two that were added to the income tax returns. However, those additional schedules only really deal with taxpayers that have scheduled income, self-employment as an example, and deal with net operating losses. So for most taxpayers that have W-2 income, your basic taxpayer filing scenario, what you're seeing in terms of the new look that you referred to actually won't even really affect the vast majority of taxpayers that are using the return. We did add this year to our website not only our typical e-file application, but there's also what we refer to as fast file that will be launched at the end of this month that actually is directed towards that type of taxpayer that has W-2 income only, no scheduled income or losses that they're accounting for. So for the taxpayer that simply wants to get in and get out and make that process as painless as possible, I'd recommend they look and continue to monitor our website for what's referred to as fast file.
And to go piggyback on that, my assistant did the filing online, and she says it was very easy and had no trouble, and took her 5 minutes to go through the process.
Glad to hear that.
Filed her return. So if anybody can file online, I guess that's the way to do it.
Yeah, we also launched, just actually a few weeks ago, a new phone system that will provide some additional opportunities for taxpayers. So just a reminder for taxpayers who desire to file on paper, they can call our automated phone system virtually 24/7. So if they're looking for things like estimated payments and credit carry forwards or refund status, they can do that through our automated phone system as well. A new feature also for local preparers is if they enter their P10, their practitioner tax identification number, they can cycle through the system. So if they have 10 or 15 clients that they're trying to obtain that information for, rather than calling it once, having to hang up and call back again, they can just call in and cycle through the system to obtain that information on behalf of the clients.
Now, the mayor, I think, we have this on our website now, a link to that, or do we do that yet? Do we do the link and all that?
Yes.
And that way, at least people can get online, at least go to our website and figure out if there's any other questions or common questions. Did we put anything online about common questions or anything, do you know? Or is it just a link to your site?
Yeah, I think it was a link there.
Do you have anything that you can
And there was
provide?
a little bit of a delay because at first they had to get it built, from the CCA transfer and
Right.
so forth. So a lot of people were here like January 2nd, January 3rd, but it's not ready yet. Well, we know that. It's gonna take us just a little bit of time, but once it's up and going, it'll be good to go. So people have come in and gotten the packets up at the window that they graciously provided for us. We've explained about the events at the rec center so that folks want to go there, have the ability to go there and physically see somebody.
And that's on the website, or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, is there anything else, is there other common questions that we put on there that Rita has, or Keith, or somebody that we want to add to that website, or no?
We can provide, if you'd like, a link to our frequently asked questions, unless the questions are specific to the transition, then I'd be happy to work with Keith on developing those.
I don't know if we need the transition, I mean, the calls are kind of dying down on the transition. Most of it's been,
Just how to fill the form out? How to make-
well, and a lot of questions, but they're not gonna be recurring, have been, where do I send my fourth quarter reconciliation? Because I sent the check to CCA in December, or we answered that, but nobody's asking that anymore. Things like that. I've had a lot of people ask about if I don't pay because I don't have income, and I do get this postcard, but again, those questions are kind of dying down because
They already asked.
they already asked, and we're through that transition, it's not gonna recur again. I think their frequently asked questions is what we're gonna need in the long run, because that's gonna be the stuff that is recurring going forward.
Yeah, maybe if we have those questions, if you can email them to Keith
Sure.
or Kathy or the mayor or whatever, we could just add those questions to the website and they
So
can,
there's a link.
or a link or whatever, you
I
give
can
us a
send you a
link.
link to the frequently asked
And
questions.
then people can go
Right.
to that link and,
You can send it to them.
Sure.
If we,
We'll put it right where the other
Yeah,
link
right
is
in there.
for Rita, we'll put it right underneath
right, because I know people change is gonna be tough for the first year, but once people understand that they don't, some of them don't have to fill out the whole form,
Mhm.
then they go, oh, but again, our mind's a little easier.
With the CCA, we weren't allowed to file on the website if we had a refund coming. Can we do that here?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I didn't realize that was a restriction. Yeah, virtually any scenario you can file online with us.
Okay.
Again, the limitations on the fast file is really designed for the very simple return. But what I call the full-scale e-file, where you have to create a login and password, that'll handle virtually any scenario, as well as the, if you're using any one of those software products that I referred to earlier.
Thank you.
So, did you say earlier, and Keith, are you getting, like, is it a daily update of filers and the money coming in, or how does that work? Is that this dashboard thing we talked about before? Is that up and running in your department that tells you?
they're installing that tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if Keith or Lori would like to go online and look at that daily, they would have the opportunity to do that. I believe, Keith, you would know this better than I believe the previous service provider, they take a snapshot, I think, at each close.
Yeah, we get a monthly from CCA, is what we've gotten in the past. This is gonna be a lot more.
Daily. Is it, they can tell your percentage, do we have capture the universe, so to speak, that as we know it in the city of, there's, 5,400 potential filers, and so far, 2,000 have submitted their returns. Is
We
there
can tell you the
something-
number of processed returns for your community, even particularly with regard to e-service usage, which a lot of communities like to see, how many of their constituents are using electronic services. We can provide those kind of statistics if you like.
I don't think that kind of comparison stuff, what you're asking about, though, is really gonna be available till next year.
Okay, so.
You understand what I mean?
Right, because you don't know
Yeah,
the
good
potential
point.
filers until
Right,
they
we
file.
need 1 year under our belt.
Right.
And then that's when it kicks in with all the people who don't file, that should have filed, that we try to find.
Correct, correct. Yeah, as far as delinquency, those are programs typically that we run in the fall.
Mhm.
So probably fall of this year, Keith and Lori will receive a letter from our compliance manager asking if you'd like to participate in that program.
Yeah, because I think the biggest issue is trying to capture the income, since we're limited in our universe, those who are supposed to provide the
Sure.
payment of, process the returns, do the returns, so we know what our total revenue generation
Right.
possibly could be.
One thing I would mention is if a taxpayer sent a return or a payment, anything for the matter of fact, after January 12th, and they directed it to CCA, that was not part of the final extract. So our call center has that information, so if it was sent to CCA after January 12th, that means that payment is hopefully going to be refunded and returned back to them from CCA, so they might want to follow up on that directly with them.
How do we know if that happens? Do we have, does CCA send us anything anymore, or they don't send us anything?
After January 12th, that was the last extract date, so.
So if they get a check, they made a sale?
We've gotten a couple calls on this. What they're doing is, if it's like an employer that files in multiple cities that are with CCA, they're giving them a credit generally to Cleveland, instead of giving them a refund, which is a bookkeeping nightmare for the person who wrote the check, because they've got to then write Rita a check for what they owed for us.
Right.
And take it out of.
So we may know that.
Cleveland, but
Right.
and then supposedly for the ones that are, like if you as an individual filer mail in a check to CCA that should have gone to Rita, in theory, they'll send you a check back, but, I mean, who knows when? I mean, it's probably not gonna be their highest priority item.
The finance, are you gonna do any follow-ups yourself, your department?
On,
With CCA to see if there is anybody that is,
well, I'm getting calls from people that if they paid it, because I've had a few people that called that said, hey, I paid this to CCA because we always had.
is there anything we can do to make it easier on the taxpayer in that situation?
I don't think there's anything we can do to cause CCA to speed that up, because we really don't have any leverage with CCA. I mean, you understand what I mean? We've switched to Rita, when we tell CCA we're gonna leave,
Do they cash the
No,
check at
I mean-
CCA, or do they just hold it?
they're cash.
Yeah, my understanding is for bookkeeping and accounting, so they can show in and out on their books, they're cashing the check and they're returning it back to the taxpayer.
Oh.
What Keith and I were sidebarring on before the meeting is that for those people that contact the city directly. We have established contacts with CCA, so if he or Lori would forward that information to us, we'll reach out to CCA on behalf of the taxpayer. And Mark, to answer your question, we'll reach out on behalf of the taxpayer, so they don't have to place a separate call and try to work through the details with CCA. We'll try to do the troubleshooting on our end.
Thank you.
And then, I mean, we would obviously, for the first month or two, waive the penalty if you're, you paid to the wrong place. It's not like you didn't pay, you just paid to the wrong place. So it's, we'll take care of what we can,
There you go.
to answer your question.
A little something, that's all that.
Now, the switching gears a little bit, the net profit tax issue, is that being paid to the state now, or has that been stayed, or do we know what the status is of that?
Yeah,
Whatever
as
you
a matter
can
of
say.
fact, actually today, February 12th, the hearing was being held, and our chief legal counsel was actually kind of texting me a play-by-play today. So there's three, let me correct myself, 3 different suits that have been filed against the state of Ohio on that issue. One through a law firm out of Central Ohio referred to as Frost Brown Todd, if you're familiar with them. They have about 100 or so independent municipalities that collect their own income tax that join, actually, even some CCA members joined that suit. We have municipalities that are under Rita's administration that filed a suit, and the city of Toledo, I think it's Lucas County, just also filed a suit. So Rita, I shouldn't say Rita, technically we're not a plaintiff in the suit. Rita members filed a lawsuit against the state of Ohio naming Joe Testa, the governor, et cetera, on that issue. It was originally filed in Lorraine County Common Police Court. The state then requested a change in venue, and the magistrate granted that change in venue. So it's now been sent to Franklin County, and the suits have both been combined. Both Frost Brown Todd and our members are retaining their own counsel. We've engaged the services of Walter Haberfield to represent our members. The first day of the hearing was today with the objective of it, and it's likely that it's more than likely it will continue into tomorrow, scheduled for today and tomorrow, with the primary purpose of ruling on a temporary injunction. That's what we've requested.
So that hasn't happened yet?
That has not happened yet.
Yep.
What has happened is that Frost Brown Todd, through negotiation with the state of Ohio, has negotiated what I'll call a stay. I don't want to use that technical term, but for purposes of discussion, to extend the time frame that municipalities were required to amend their local ordinances to include those provisions that speak to the net profit administration on behalf of the state of Ohio until February 24th. And the court has agreed that they will provide a ruling prior to that date, so municipalities, if they deem it appropriate, will then go ahead and make those adjustments to the ordinance. So I say all that because
Make those adjustments by the 24th?
that's
Because we
correct.
haven't done that.
You have to do that under emergency legislation.
I understand.
Right, you've already made, and Keith, I think, forwarded to the administration, you did make some changes that had due date changes that were required to be made, but everything short of the net profit administration. I believe you've already made those amendments.
No, we were withholding, the law director suggested we withhold until the lawsuit is
Okay.
completed, so we've not changed anything at this point.
Okay.
Because we want to know what we want to do if it does, if it fails, let's say, and the state is permitted to continue
Correct.
or permitted to collect the net profit tax, we want to do some things changing here to encourage people not to send their money to the state.
Correct.
There's certain things we could do with being creative, and hopefully to have them pay to the city.
Right, there are municipalities that have kind of renegotiated and redrafted their CRA agreements, requiring that they file directly with whomever you name, whether it's your third-party administrator or directly with the city.
Because we're fearful we may never see that money. So,
I have no comment.
so we want to make sure that we do whatever we can to encourage at least the local people to file it. Now, the multi or national or multinational companies, they may do whatever they want to do, of course, because they're going to do whatever easiest for them. So, but we try to give an incentive to make sure that they file it.
So with regard to the lawsuit, we send out news alerts to Keith and Lori, so I'm sure they'll forward those to the administration and keep you.
But we should have an answer before the 24th of what we have to do.
That's
with
correct.
respect
My
to-
understanding is the court has indicated that they'll make a ruling prior to the 24th. I won't say allowing for ample time, but allowing for time for municipalities to make the proper adjustments to the
If they have
ordinance.
to, or give an extension of time, if it goes down there, or just stay it altogether until they decide what they're gonna do on the issue at what they're looking at, the constitutionality of their ability to pass this law.
Correct. Today as witnesses, you may know some of these folks in the industry, but Mindy Frank, which is the tax administrator for the city of Columbus, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Robeson, which worked for the city of Columbus as well, which is now working for the city of Dublin, as their chief of tax. provided testimony, and I believe they ended today with cross-exam with the first witness today. So it's going to be a lengthy process, there's no doubt.
So we're just hoping for the injunction to extend it.
We're all hopeful.
Anybody else have any other questions or follow-up with or anything? Any concern, residents calling you? Anybody? Anybody getting calls?
Just that one?
Only Kathy's getting calls.
Yeah, just that one.
But they're calling on the weekend, they're not leaving a name, so.
They call it.
CCA, it's CCA work.
Yeah.
All right, is there, any, Keith, you got anything else?
The calls have been dying down for, I mean, in January, we were taking. a whole lot
Confusion,
of
just
finance.
confusion, I guess, mainly.
Yeah, and a lot of people too, and I can understand this, but, there's a lot of concern with, phishing attacks and things like that. A lot of people were like, is this letter legitimate? They just called to make sure that
Correct.
Rita was an actual thing, and it wasn't just somebody trying to, trying to run a scam and make a bunch of money. So I answered a lot of those calls too. But those letters went out quite a while ago, so I would say I've pretty much.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to have, at least on 37 or something, just something that rolls that says, I mean, you already do, but more detailed stuff about the changeover, that it's not a scam, that if you have concerns, you can go to this website or something, or is that something that's
Had we
worth?
thought of that in December, it might have been
Yeah.
useful, but, I mean, really, at this point, I mean, those calls have died down enough. Most people, because everybody got the letter at this point over a month ago.
Right.
If they had a question about it, they've pretty much called. Most of the questions I'm getting now are the stuff like we were just talking about. Either somebody's found their, employers filing their fourth quarter reconciliations, making sure that that goes to Rita, or, or they've already sent it to CCA and saying, well, now what do I do? And again, that stuff is, those aren't gonna be recurring questions. That's gonna happen one time, and then next month it won't.
Okay.
So I think we're pretty much through that.
Because there's gonna be a lull for a while, I would assume, and then when it gets closer to April, or in April, then it's gonna spike again, because people say, what do I
Right.
gotta do?
Right, because you've got all the businesses and stuff that have to do stuff every month right now, but then when you get into April, is what you're gonna run into is the individual filers who are getting ready to file their return saying, who didn't pay attention to the letter, who didn't already call.
Well, it was in, I think it was in the water
You know?
bill too, so that
Right.
was shown in there, so if somebody looked at that.
But maybe your suggestion is, maybe sometime in the middle of March, start rolling
Roll
something
something.
on a couple of the channels,
On channel-
Channel 4 and 37.
Just to say, remember,
Right.
go to this website, because odds are you didn't remember.
And maybe the press could put some little blurbs to remind the folks, Bob.
How's the press feel about that? All good?
I've been doing that.
Well, good, we
Thank you.
appreciate it, yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Because
Thank you,
people
Bob.
aren't gonna remember, I guess, and it's always last minute. All right, thanks, Bob. All right. Any other questions? Thank you for your time. And maybe maybe closer to April, give us another update or something, so we know, because that's gonna be crunch time, I guess.
Sure, absolutely.
And then we could tie in with Keith to see how the information's coming through and make sure everything's going smooth.
I'm not sure who to do that through, but we'll try to put something on the cable, in, like you said, in mid-March with the Rita website, their phone
Yeah,
number, this is who you file with, things like this.
Okay. All right, okay. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Thank you.
We do pending. Okay.
I think we're doing planning on
Pending,
imminent.
imminent.
Just imminent, but happening.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion at 5:55 PM to go into executive session to conference with the law director concerning disputes involving the city, which are subject to pending or imminent litigation, to include the mayor, Greg Huber,
Commissioner Hudson, and County Administrator Scott.
Scott Miller. Anybody else then?
Mr. Huber and I.
Yeah, I said
Yes.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Is there a second?
I made a
Second.
motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Lamb?
Yes.
Cardell?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Point?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
We'll recess into executive session to discuss what Mr. Seals mentioned, and we're gonna go upstairs, and you guys can stay down here, and then when we're finished, we're gonna come back. We're not gonna take any action from what we discussed, but we'll come back and reconvene in the finance meeting. We are in recess. All right, we're back from recess. We'll call this finance committee meeting back to order. Item number 3 is 17,200 credit card fees. I know we discussed this many, many times. There's debates on what to do, what not to do. Do we charge them, not charge them?
We have a quote for passing them through. They did not yet give us the quote for if we're gonna pay them ourselves, so we can lay those next to each other and give you the options. If we're gonna pass it through on the utilities, They say it's a regulation from Visa, so we don't have a choice on this. It's not a percentage, it's a flat rate, it's $2.85. And that's up to a $225 transaction, which would cover almost all of our utilities. There are some businesses that are obviously gonna be over that, but I mean, any residential is
What
gonna
happens
be-
if it goes over?
It actually doesn't say that on this sheet, so I'm not 100% sure.
That's,
I might have to break
it's a
it to
$2.85 fee plus,
$2.85. That's a flat fee, that's it.
But
That's if we're passing it through.
but there's other fee associated in addition to that.
We have to pay an account access fee, which is $400 a month, but that replaces a fee, so that's $4,800 a year. That replaces a fee that we're currently paying, which is $4,400 a month, so it's not a huge difference. And it would pass all the convenience fees, we would not get that money. That would be through them. So in other words, if you had a $100 bill you were paying, you would pay $102.85, we would get 100. The $285 is between you and this vendor, we don't see it. It's not running through the city.
So we don't have all the information yet.
I don't have the quote for what they will charge us if we are going to not pass the fees on.
Well, let's table that
Okay.
another time until we get the information. Well, Darren, we'll go to you to make sure that you can go home tonight.
Well, I'm first, second, and last, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, we'll, let's do yours next, of course, is 1820, expenditure of $15,000 to MNJ Technologies, the IT department.
This is the normal yearly replacement cycle for 25 computers. We roughly got 100 computers here citywide. We've been trying to get all of them up to Windows 10. This would complete this phase so that we would be on all Windows 10 PCs here at City Hall, Police Department, and our outpost buildings.
Questions?
Move to approve. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was
I
gonna
just
say,
wanna make
Darren,
one.
is this the only place we can get this type of, the PCs?
Well,
There's
we're
nobody
doing-
in town, or?
We're just doing it through state bid, and
Oh, okay,
this is a state bid, I should have added that in there, the state
It
bid
says
number's
that.
there on the sheet.
Okay.
So that's normally how we do it. We just use M&J because they're a popular vendor that we funnel a lot of what we purchase through.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1821, mail service upgrade, Darren?
So this started out July of last year. We had a mail server failure here at the city, lasted about a day. So we decided to look at what we can do to make more higher availability, so that should we have a mail server go down, we don't lose mail services. They've become pretty prioritized around here. So we looked at the different options and projects on how we can do this, and we can host it and have it archive hosted. We can host the mail and use our current archiving method, which we have here at the city, through Barracuda Appliance. Or we can do what we're currently doing and just rebuild the mail server that failed, that we've been limping along on. And at the end of the day, what we decided was, it was way cheaper over a cost of 5 years to rebuild our current mail server and extend some licensing out here so that we can, for lack of better terms, have 2 mail servers pointing to one data source. So if we do lose a mail server in the future, the other one will pick up and avoid us being down. So financially, that seemed to be the way to go with it. So this cost here is basically the cost of the licensing for the data center, which allows us to virtualize this environment, which is how we do it. It's also the actual Exchange Server 2016 license. We currently run Exchange 2010. It runs out of support in late of 2019, so the timing's pretty good. We're gonna also be able to build our network so it's higher availability, but also we're gonna be forced to do something next year anyway to upgrade this. And then what it includes is 200 CALs, which is, the license is for 200 users, which is what we have here citywide to connect to this mail server, and an upgraded status of Office 2000, or Exchange 2016.
But there'll be no change in usability, it's gonna be the same?
Nothing, it'll be all seamless in the back end, other than if we drop a server, if you will, it'll be that phrase I always use, a belt, suspenders, and a barrel. We'll have the ability to avoid being out.
Paul?
Yeah, what broke that we feel comfortable enough we can
Yeah,
rebuild
what
the
actually
server?
broke, our backups, and I should have said that too, our backups are good. There was never a concern of our data, because we back it up with our Barracuda appliance, and it's shoved off to 2 different states. But it's also on a disaster recovery site over at the high school. So the data was there. The problem was the system state failed on the Exchange 2010 model. So you had to reload the server, which is what we did, was we reloaded the server to get the operating system
Okay,
up.
so
and
it
then
wasn't a
we-
hardware failure?
It wasn't a hardware
Okay,
failure. Something
okay.
went wrong, something went sideways, if you will, and we really didn't do an update, a Windows update, so we're not really sure. It was faster to get the problem resolved and get the data restored so we could get rolling.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna jump down to 21 just to get Darren out of here. 1837, the buyout of the phone system lease and new maintenance contract. Everybody probably received an email today detailing exactly the cost. If you recall, when we approved this back in the day, we were told to lease, but now it's not a good idea.
Yeah, so I tried to break this out. It took me a couple days to learn how this lease worked and all that, but the bottom line was, 5 years ago, when this was approved, there was a monthly fee of $949, and it was broke out between support and the lease option. That time frame has expired here at this April, so you can auto-renew this and go into another 3 years, but the cost savings is about $14,000 if you exercise a buyout option now. Buy the server, pay the support. There'll be, the only added thing that we added in the support was to actually start supporting the phones themselves. Those are actually little switches. And now those are 5 years old, so I'm starting to see sometimes some phone issues. So we added that into the support, so our support costs went up about $400 for a year, something like $600 for a year. So the long story short is my recommendation at this point, it would save you roughly $14,000 over the course of the next 3 years if you exercise the buyout at $11,000 some dollars, which was in the email, and then pay for the roughly $4,000 a year for support. We'll own the equipment versus this shield lease we've been doing, which we don't own anything. It's just, you're paying for.
Well, how long before the equipment is outdated and we need to buy new equipment?
Thank you.
That's a great question, and I talked to Frontier about that to make sure that the support contract that we're in, when that failed, they cover it. So that's part of their deal, that the support contract will take care of the hardware that we have, so that we won't have.
Until when? Until the 3 years
As long
is
as-
up?
No, as long as we're paying it's $3,900 a year, so as long as we're paying our support fees, they take care of the
But
equipment.
it's for 3 years only though, or is it forever?
Well, the lease would have been for 3 years, it's forever. It's for as long as we want to keep paying them support.
So if we pay them $3,900, they're automatically, if something breaks, they'll say, here's a new.
It's theirs.
No, that's just it, if you read it, it's not new. It's like, it's in kind, it's refurbished, and that's where I'm gonna start having a problem. You know, the first couple of years, yeah, it's okay, because it's gonna be relatively new. But as we get further and further down the line, we're gonna end up right where we were that got us to where we are, and that the equipment's not going to be there to replace. That's what concerns me about this.
I
Go ahead.
I think what you need to look at there is how quickly you break even on this lifespan, because we're ahead $14,000 within the 36 months by doing the buyout. Because I understand your concern, but I think that that's a far enough down the line concern. For the next 3 years, we're better off by $14,000 to buy.
And, okay, and I'll take your numbers, because that's probably about right where that is, but, you know, come the end of that 3 years, we better be able to pull a trigger. Either we're gonna buy new, or lease different, or do something.
Yeah,
We should be
because-
ready, so we're not under the gun to do something.
Right, and we may have to make a change in the 3 years, as you suggest, and that's certainly a possibility, but even within the 3, we're ahead. So I think we still want to do this, and then at the end of 3 years, if the system's still functioning and they're still willing to support it. Because the other thing you find is that as these support contracts will, they'll start jacking that up as the equipment gets older.
Right.
And the other thing I had to add to that, after 3 years, if we continue with this shield lease, we still don't own the equipment, we still got nothing.
Right.
So we've paid $36,000 on top of what we've already done, and we don't own anything. So if you're either gonna renew a lease at that point to get new equipment, or you start from scratch and pay $14,000 more, that's kind of the way I was looking at it.
Yeah, I understand the logic. 8 years for phones, that's probably a good life.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Emergency clauses requested, at least on mine, maybe not on yours.
Yeah, it needs
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, adding the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Darren, thank you.
Much
Are
appreciated.
you leaving, Darren?
Have a good night.
I can stay if you need something.
Do you want to take this?
We're gonna get them all after the end of tonight.
Okay.
And we're gonna do them all tomorrow, so
Okay.
Kathy's gotta,
Thank
she knows
you.
what's happening.
Make sure your name's marked on it.
Okay, 18022, expenditure for Emergitech, annual maintenance contract for the police department. Chief?
This is a subscription and maintenance
My name's on.
expenses for our CAD RMS system, our computer-aided dispatch and report module system.
Do we still, I guess the question is Emergitech, how long are we gonna stay with them?
Well, we're in the process of researching other options for our CAD RMS. If we decide to go with either another company or upgraded Emergitech Circle product, they'll prorate this for us.
The prorate, I mean, if we leave them, they'll give us the reimbursement of the amount, because aren't we paying a little extra for Emergitech? I think that's what was.
Yes, sir, we are. It's because it's a cloud-based system, so we're paying a little extra on the maintenance fee for that.
And what service does the county have?
They have Emergitech as well.
Are they gonna stick with that?
No.
What are they getting out of it?
We're currently in the process of
Oh,
looking at a
together?
collaborative effort with us, the county, and the 2 townships, so that we can go together and get
Sure.
a better deal on
Sure.
essentially whether we go with Spone, which is one of the other vendors we're looking at, or Zerker,
Okay.
which is the upgraded version of Emergitech.
And part of the conversation, as I remember with Nancy and software that she's upgrading, in her, in clerk of courts, she was trying to get something that would tie in with the police department, the sheriff's department, so that there's less paperwork or double entry or whatever.
Yes, sir, for the
Okay.
e-citations, I believe it was.
Correct, yeah,
And,
so-
and both of these systems that we're looking at will have that capability.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Does that answer everybody's questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1823, expenditure for 25,000 for signal service for the street department. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. So last July, July 1st, there was a pursuit that the sheriff's department was involved in, ended up in the city, and Medina PD was involved and apprehended the person, but there was a crash, and if you remember, the gentleman wiped out the fire hydrant and the master cabinet control system at the corner of East Liberty and Broadway. So you see from the quote, there was about $9,498 in emergency repairs. And then to replace this cabinet, it's $19,054. Could handle it out of operations, but we need some additional POs to get through the year, so that's why you see the ensuing requests. We did talk with administration and the law department with regard to putting this on our insurance, because the gentleman, I think he's in jail, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't have insurance, there's a stolen plate on the vehicle. We're not gonna recoup any money from the person that, was involved in the chase. So this is the expenditure of that.
So we're still debating if we're gonna do it on insurance or not do it on insurance?
Well, we didn't wanna have a claims history on.
Yeah, we didn't
and-
want to establish a claim system.
And at the time, this was the only one. Since that time, we've had a couple others, so Greg and I chatted today with Matt. We're able to have Allstate cover another incident that they gave a claim number to, so that will come off of the list. So I guess initially, we thought that we would take care of this, so, I mean, that's where we're at with it.
Questions?
And how much increase are we looking at if we do file a claim? Do we have any idea?
I don't know that answer, I guess we can get that, but we had several claims.
More than $25,000?
Well, we had that, and then we had a couple police cruisers, and they took care of the cruisers being repaired through the department, so that did go on the automobile insurance. And a hydrant was hit. We took care of that, and we relocated it. Kennedy Company donated, actually, gave us a new hydrant, so we were able to install that, and that's on Liberty, just east of UCC Church.
Yes.
Hey, Kevin,
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1824, purchase of a 2019 Freightliner forestry bucket truck. Jansen, this is you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to purchase a 2019 Freightliner equipped with a Terex XT Pro 60-foot lift and a forestry box. This unit is going to be replacing a 2001 GMC 3500 that has been used basically well beyond its service life, and its maintenance records indicate that it has more than the standard issues with it since 2013. So we've had one truck, we've nursed it along, we've got, it's got it served the city really well. It's a little bit smaller than what we need at this point. Over the last several years, the forestry department has went through a pretty good transition away from contractual work to more dependency on our in-house staff utilizing their skills and saving a lot of money, both with the pruning and removals throughout the city. And we're at a point right now where we do have a good amount of carry forward. We saved up for this purchase for a number of years. And in the past, we've been using the street department's 40-foot aerial truck that is to be used for replacing bulbs on stoplights and smaller projects. We've been using it in doing tree work because it was a resource that we could utilize. And it presents some challenges with scheduling, and it's not specifically designed for tree work. So with that being said, we're looking to get a much larger truck as our scope of work has increased. This truck is going to improve in efficiencies. It's going to improve safety around electrical conductors, which is very important for a lot of the trees in our historic district, as well as be a dedicated unit to the forestry department beyond just the regular scope of work, but also be available for storm damage in the event that we do have that. We've looked at several purchasing options utilizing STS contracts. This particular request is through the National Joint Powers Alliance, and we also looked into leasing, which was discussed in our budget hearing back in October. The only options we were to find with leasing was lease to own. There is rental options available, but it's around $50,000 for 1 year with limited availability. So since this is such a specialized truck, we have majority of the funds in the budget. I think I'm requesting about $6,000 in our carry forward to be used for it. We feel that this is a good option, utilizing a vendor out of Virginia who specializes in making these vehicles. If we move forward without the emergency clause, we should have a vehicle by mid-April of this year.
And what's the current bucket truck, how far does it go?
The current one that we use, it's actually a 35-foot boom, but when you look at the working height, it factors in the height of the truck that it's mounted to. So it's about 40 feet. So in order to reach 40 feet, you have to be parked directly underneath the tree.
And its new one is 60 feet.
It's actually 65
Because of the truck.
it's mounted up on the truck. So it gives us the ability to go up in the roadway, over the utilities, and work on the trees.
Now, you have features on this. We're not paying extra for paint, are we?
So this unit is,
Let's make it red.
Just check it.
this unit is basically as basic as they come.
Okay.
There are some options on it that we wouldn't typically get with a normal chassis if we were going to spec it out, but these are built in mass for the utility companies, and it's actually cheaper to get it with all the options that it has.
Stick all the lights you can hang with it.
Yeah.
I was just, I don't even want to bring that up, but if you brought it up, I guess. it's,
Jansen, this National Joint Power Alliance, is that similar to like a state contract, or what is
Federal.
it? Federal?
Yeah, it's federal, and we're, the city of Medina is a member of it. We purchased a number of
Several
vehicles.
garbage trucks.
And you say this will fit your needs, but you, what, do you think you need even further than 65 feet for our street trees?
No.
Okay.
For street trees, no.
Now, what about storage? Where are you gonna store this?
This
It's
will
gonna
fit in our building at Spring Grove Cemetery.
Equipment outside to make this thing happen?
No.
Once upon a time, we were talking about repurposing the snorkel truck. The conversation about the lights at the ball fields came in. Will this allow us to replace those?
So when we work on the athletic field lights, there are a number of fields that have poles that are over 70 feet tall that we can't reach. But a good majority of our lights we can reach. And in the past, we've utilized the equipment sharing contract with Medina County. And we borrowed their tree truck to change light bulbs on our athletic fields. So we'll have other uses than just in the forestry department.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any other questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1825, and then and now for Cargill road salt.
So then now for salt purchase.
You get salt.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on the salt? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1826, Fire District Advisory Committee.
So I think the RCA says it all. Montville is not interested in reconfiguring the fire district committee and recommend that the council do the same. The council didn't actually vote on it, we just shared with you what was going to happen, and the three entities agreed to it. And now with the two trustees, new trustees up there, they wanted to appoint 2 former firemen, one who lives in Medina City for Medina Township rep, and one that lives in Brunswick Hills for Medina Township rep. We've told them they're welcome to be on the committee, get all the minutes, know when the meetings are, everything else, but they shouldn't be voting members, they should be representative of the community, and I continue to hold that opinion.
Well, I think the reason for the being a resident is because if the fire district happens, the resident will be taxed. So you didn't want a non-resident making a decision for a resident. I mean, it only makes sense. And it seems like the option given to allow them to serve on the committee and come to the meetings and give their input, that's great. But I guess I agree that there shouldn't be a voting member who's not a resident, because a non-voting member shouldn't make a decision for somebody in a taxable situation for that resident.
Wasn't there a war fought over that once?
A small one, but I think you're exactly correct. So I don't think we need to do really anything with respect to this, except for, I guess, tell Medina Township to, let them come on. But again, the whole purpose of the committee is those who make the decisions should be the ones that have to pay the tax, so there shouldn't be a...
Yeah, I'm fine if the consensus is that we leave it as is, and I'll tell them that.
Is that, everybody agree with that?
Leave it as is.
All right. 1827, expenditure of $15,000 for Osborne Medina for the streets department. Nino?
Thank you. This is for materials for street repair, for a PO not to exceed $25,000 out of operating supplies. Concrete, sand, stone.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
1828, expenditure of $15,000 for Lake County sewer for the streets. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting a purchase order for storm sewer maintenance. This is our grouting contractor. If you recall, we're trying to get a jump on the spring work and securing a PO for the same.
Discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Expenditure, 1829, expenditure of $15,000 for signal service for the streets again. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is one of the operating POs I was talking about. The other one is to repair damages that were from last year. This is for day-to-day operations and maintenance of equipment, $20,000.
This says 15 here, so I guess, am I correct? The motion would be for 20,000, not 15.
It's just a
No, it's expenditure
Yeah,
of
it's
15,
expenditure.
because you
Oh,
have
yeah.
15,000.
Just has to go to finance.
Nice try.
For the wrong day.
It was a long executive session, I understand.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1830, expenditure of 15 for signal service for the streets again.
Thank you. Again, this is for day-to-day, this is for capital expenditures out of the 115 account for signal service and street repair and maintenance of equipment.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1831, fund advance of 001 to 821 Cemetery Mausoleum.
This is the mechanics behind the previously approved expenditure, we need to do the advance.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1832, expenditure of 15,000 signal service for the streets. Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Pacoli.
President. This one was an unfortunate incident, car versus master cabinet at West Smith and Lake. I believe there were some medical issues and there was an accident. We are pursuing this with law, trying to figure out if we can get reimbursed. And you see from the quote, $8,000 for the emergency repair, and then it's $16,000 for the actual replacement of the cabinet.
Questions?
Get guardrails around this.
Yeah.
It's almost like mailboxes.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. It's probably a lot better than that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 1833, request to rezone 1011 Wadsworth Road from R4 to an SPD3. Mr. Mendel?
Yes, I'll try to get this under the wire here. On January 11th of this year, applicant submitted a request to rezone 1011 Wadsworth Road from R4 multifamily to SPD3, permit the construction of a 6-building self-storage facility on a 3.35 acre lot. The Planning Commission recommended denial of the conceptual development planning guidelines, which is part of the mechanism to rezone the property from R4 to SPD3. as this goes through the legislative process of city council, there are 5 criteria or items that the city council has to find at least one of them or more to, in order to create a special planning district. So those are outlined on in the RCA. So just provided the planning commission packet, minutes and resolution in your packet, and then a timeline for potential legislative process with the city council.
Paul, first, you're on the committee.
Basically, the 4 members who voted against moving this to an SPD looked at all of the criteria that are on the first page here of 1114.04 and pretty much agreed that this request here did not meet any of those criteria whatsoever. During the conversation, a lot was brought up about being a transitional area, but when you look at the aerial photograph of the place, you can see nothing but residents, a fire station, and this property. There's nothing there that's transitional. It's clearly and specifically residential. This property was rezoned once already in the past 24 months for sure, maybe even shorter than that, from, I forget what it was, to a multifamily residential at the request of Mr. Sheets. And
R3 to R4.
R3 to R4, thank you. And now they're asking to change it again. So those were all of the factors that came into the planning commission voting on.
I don't know what the process is here. I mean, I agree with the planning commission's decision. I don't think it's, myself personally, don't think it's the right fit for the neighborhood. It is all residential. I'd like to do that one.
And I understand where you're coming from, Mark, but I support the change, and I think I explained that at the last, when this came up when we were at city council. If you look at that area and you look at what's proposed to be built, it makes a great deal of sense because of these factors. One, the architectural design fits into a residential neighborhood, and more significantly, the impact on the city, the impact on schools, the infrastructure, water, sewer, police, fire, is almost non-existent. I mean, they have established a design and an opening and closing hours, lighting, that truthfully would be to the benefit of the city and that neighborhood, in my opinion. Whereas if you build apartments, you add more folks, and so many apartments, of course, create a classroom, and so many more create an entire school, and it has an impact on the police department, the fire department, the service department, you name it. It's a quiet addition, and it aesthetically fits the area. And I think that if you recall, when this came to a vote on city council, I think that there were 3 members that voted in favor of this change, and we need five votes, I believe.
Yeah.
And I would hope when it comes back to a vote, that we'll have those 5 votes.
Well, Denny was one of the 4, but he's not here. You were 1-4.
I'm still for.
The new person.
I agree with everything that you've just said when it comes to adding the facility or the requirements to, putting in the housing versus, something that is quiet and has open and close times. I don't see why I would be against it.
And could I just add this though, John? And I think a survey of the residents that are in the area that are contiguous to the property and within sight of the property, first of all, people have showed, number one, they've showed support for it. And number 2, anybody who hasn't come forward, there has been no one come forward and object to it.
Mr. Sheets, anything you'd like to add?
No, I'd just like to respectfully request that all of the councilmen read through the planning minutes, the minutes of the meeting, and evaluate. I provided 43 reasons that I thought this was a reasonable request. The planning commission turned it down on 4 reasons, one being the comprehensive plan, which is 11 years old, one being the fact that it had been denied to be CS, which is commercial service. I accepted that because that was businesses like convenience stores and things that were going to have a much greater impact. There were also a factor was brought up that it was rezoned from R2 to R4, which I handled for Elaine Jones, the previous owner, in order to give her a better chance to market the property So I've been hearing the word bait and switch. There was no bait and switch. It just happened, I ended up with a different client then, after he evaluated how many other apartments were being built, which was over 275 approved in the last year and a half, that he wanted to go this direction. And I would just strongly suggest and hope that you'll have a thorough look at it, and we'll look forward to meeting with the public hearing. And thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I don't think we have to vote on this tonight, so we gotta go to a public hearing, so.
Yeah, but we have to recess, right?
We got 1 minute.
We could do one more. 18034, you can go, you can go. 18
No, I need to record the vote.
Oh, okay, well, I guess we'll have to recess, and then we'll come back in after the council meeting. We'll probably do it upstairs. I don't think we have to come back down here to do the last three. We can do them right on the thing. So I move to recess until we have the council meeting, then we'll reconvene after the council meeting to finalize finance.
Pay for a part of the right-of-way, specifically $125,000 this year and $125,000 next year. Their thought is that if they can get the locals' share up front, when we do go back for another try at the track for construction funding, that would significantly enhance our application for them to see this project's important to the locals. They've got skin in the game. They paid their, so that's why they're asking for that now. I know they've talked to both Medina and Montville Township, and they both agreed to it. We're here to see if we want to agree to it as well.
So when you say the $250,000, are we, for the construction of the track funding, are we going to be able to have to put more money up, or are they going to cover it all then? or how
No,
does-
they're telling this. They're not asking for us to increase our overall commitment of $250 at all. It's just that they would like us to pay it sooner, as part of the right-of-way phase.
And if we don't, and if they don't get the funding, does the project happen, or we just get the right away?
Well, that's a very good point. For 42, for instance, our commitment, which was over $1 million, was in the construction phase. Well, at that point, we knew it was happening. There was no risk at all. This, you could say there is, I guess, a risk. If construction doesn't happen, we would be out. Now, that being said, it will get
What? Wait, we would be out?
will get funded. The question is when. They've already spent over $2 million on plans. The right-of-way funding was about $3 million. The state's not going to spend that much money without getting construction dollars.
So I guess the question is, what is the likelihood from your discussions of the timing of the project to occur? If in the next 2 years we spend $250,000 to obtain the right-of-way, how many more years would we have to wait before the construction occurred?
My best guess would be, if we're successful when they go back again to get construction dollars, we're still 4 years out at the earliest.
4 years from now, or 4 years from the 2 years?
4 years from when they get the construction dollars.
So
That's
that would
4
be
years
6
from
years
now.
from now.
Could be, yeah.
I guess the question is, if we don't do it, we get nothing. If we do it, we're guaranteed something at some time.
Say it again.
Strangely, I followed that.
Well, I guess if we don't do anything, the project may never happen, and that's not good.
Well, we don't have to do this. They're asking. I think it's a good idea, but if we don't, they're still moving forward. It's just they think our next grant application is not going to be as strong as it could be.
What do you get? Or is everybody
And
thought?
Well,
both
I have a-
townships agreed to it already.
I just have a little, I understand where Pat's coming from. I just have a little concern about our guarantee about getting our money back.
We're not going to. The project's
Well,
going to happen.
if it, well,
But it's going to take years, maybe.
Yeah,
And this is the only
it
way
will
to
happen,
happen
but
if
it's
it make it happen faster.
several years away.
If we give this money now, we're have a better chance to have this project occur within the next 10 years. If we don't give them money now, they may not have an equal chance to get the project to occur within the next 10 years. So the question is, if we're going to spend the money no matter what, and if the 108 fund has the funds available to do this, why wouldn't we do it? What's the negatives of doing it?
Well, the negative would be if it never happens.
No, it's going to happen, he said.
It's going to.
That's what Pat said.
Yeah.
Pat's not making the approval.
There is a risk that it couldn't, but it's very, very minimal. The track, like I said, they've authorized $2 million for engineering and $2 million for right of way. They're not going to authorize those and not then authorize construction.
And they're going to take they're going to take these funds and go out and acquire the right of way.
Right. They've already
So
awarded that. That I allocated those funds, the $3 million. They're just asking
so
for our.
at least we will have the right of way on those parcels.
They will.
at
Yeah.
the worst-case scenario.
Correct, yeah.
And based upon the fact that they've already spent a few $1,000,000, Pat is correct. They're not going to just walk away from the project. I mean, that would be irresponsible at a high level. I mean, I guess if it was
Would be the first
$500,000,
time,
I could see the state walking away from it. But if it's a few million, odds are they're not going to walk away from it. And I think we want to do anything we can to make sure that the project happens.
Much needed.
Just wanted to know if we're recording what
Disagree.
Pat's telling us here.
Since Patrick's going to
No, I spoke to ODOT today or last week about that, and this is where they're comfortable saying.
Everybody okay with it?
And we have enough money to move around, did we anticipate this?
Can we
I mean,
allocate this?
Yeah, we already agreed to put away $250,000. The only difference is the timing of the payment.
We're just giving it away
Correct.
now.
Is it okay? Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1835, bids for Guilford Boulevard Bridge replacement. Patrick, again.
Yes, this is a project, as you know, we were fortunate enough to get an ODOT municipal bridge grant to replace, to fund 95% of the cost of the Guilford Bridge. The project's ready to go. We've submitted to ODOT to get final approval to bid, so we need the authorization to bid. We anticipate doing it this summer, so we'd like to bid as soon as possible. That's why we're here now.
Laura? You had a question?
No.
Oh, I thought you had a question.
I do.
Mark?
So, are we guaranteeing that this project's going to happen this year? And if it does, are we going to make sure it happens in the summer when school's not in play?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
And how long will this project take? 3 months?
Anticipate a 45-day closure.
Oh, 45 days only, a month and a
Yeah.
half.
Great.
It's 90 then. Okay, 3 months. Okay.
Can't
How
have
do you
that.
feel about
I
that?
was just going to say, May 30th, then you'll be ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the last day of school, so
And what's the first day of school?
August 17th, I believe, or
So you don't really have 90 days.
Not on August 16th.
60 days.
60 days. Yeah, we'll go with 60.
That's all you get.
All right.
Okay. 'Cause I noticed you have a barrel there now because of the storm catch basin
That,
cave.
that was our street department's repair policy, I guess.
we call it. Pay for that one later.
All right. Well, that's. I'm glad we're seeing that done, and I'm glad that they were getting it picked up by state funding, and
Yep.
so that's a good thing. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And the final one this evening is 1836, revision to the police lieutenant job description. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. In your packets, you should have the current job description. Under the education, training, and experience, it's just 2 minor edits I'd like to add in there. One is to add the Public Safety Leadership Academy to the education. 4 of our, myself and 3 other sergeants have been through that training. And the last sentence where it is considerable experience at the level of police sergeant or investigative specialist, I would like to delete investigative specialist. That's a position we haven't had for probably close to 15 years, and I don't anticipate having another one.
Okay. Any discussion? Mark?
No.
Nope. Nope.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there anything else that anybody wishes to bring up before the Finance Committee before we adjourn? Hearing nothing, meeting's adjourned.